Hello, hi everyone, and welcome to the stream. Uh, is my mic audible? Is everyone here? Perfect. So thank you guys for attending this stream today. And my name is Pratham. I work at AppTweak, and today's stream is going to cover how we can cover ASO in terms of tips and tricks and how to utilize a tool to better analyze ASO. All right. So I'm just going to share my screen, and we're going to get into this. All right, perfect. So now what we're looking at is the AppWeek dashboard. And for today's tips and tricks, we're going to utilize a common set of apps that we use on a day-to-day basis. And I'm going to be covering, taking the example of the maps and navigation category and taking common apps that we use, such as Ola, Rapido, Uber, and so on, to cover certain best practices. Right. So when we do ASO, our primary understanding is that the metadata is the most important real estate where we're going to be optimizing an app in terms of keywords, whether it is app name, subtitle, and more. Now, if you go through the tool, the first thing we would realize is that we've released something called the ASO report. Now, why do we have this here? Why is it there for our end users to understand? Now, an ASO score is basically a score given out based on your utilization of the best practices. It helps you understand if you are adhering to that and where do you stand in terms of the best practices score. Now, if you take, for example, apps across the category like Ola, Rapido, Uber, Meru, Yulu, and so on. Ola, for example, has 85%, Vogo has 100% adherence, and whereas the lowest is Yulu. And why is that? It's because, firstly, there's not enough reviews and ratings for the following app. And secondly, Ola does not have enough best practices because they don't update the app on a regular basis. Now, with the Google Play Store, we have the three prime areas. That is the app name, we have the subtitle, we have the long description. Now, while focusing on these, the major tip here and a common mistake that we see across the end users is that they tend to repeat the same keywords across their name, their short description, and their long description. Right? Now, say for example, I am Ola and I have keywords like safe, affordable, right? Now, these are the same keywords that I should not be utilizing again in the short description because it's a waste of the space and it's not going to make any difference in terms of App Store optimization. And secondly, you're just not giving space for the other set of keywords that you want to focus on. So that's one important tip to take away is that do not make the mistake of utilizing the same keywords in your app name and in your short description. Now, for example, if you are noticing that your competitors have the same set of keywords, it's great to take a note of that because we need to go further into understanding what is the set of dictionary that they might be using. Now, we have the long description here. Now, this is really important from the Google Play Store perspective and not so much for the Apple App Store because Google takes into consideration the keywords you are utilizing in your long description, the ones that are repeating the most. Now, the trick here is to first understand and create a dictionary and understand what are the key set of keywords that you'd like to utilize. And then, secondly, go into it and repeat the keyword in the most logical manner. Now, that does not mean that we go ahead and fill our dictionary with 300 or keep stuffing the description with the set of keywords that we want to focus on, but we really need to focus on an ideal percentage. Now, the ideal number to maintain, and you can understand that in the tool, for example, using the density chart. And this is an ideal number to have. But at the same time, it gives us an understanding of, hey, what are the keywords my competitors are focusing on, or what keywords are apps in this category focusing on today? That's a really important metric to look at. Now, whereas the long description place, now if you're going to do this for the Apple App Store, you would have the keyword field. Then, for example, it's very important to understand the icon, what are the set of creatives they're using, feature graphics, Rapido, Uber, and what they're utilizing today, and also understand what are screenshots being utilized by the other apps in the category. Now, what we have seen with apps in general is when the promotional video has been introduced as a feature with the Google Play Store. It's been primarily introduced for you to help increase your conversion rate, help you understand better. Just a second. Can the screen be seen now? All right. Could you confirm the same if the screen sharing is on? If you're able to see my screen. All right. Right, so that's how we're going to cover the metadata section. Now, it's also important to keep a track of what changes or what's going on in terms of updates with our competitors. And for example, what A/B tests are going on, what type of creative updates are they making, and what changes are they making in terms of the metadata. Now, a common practice that you would have heard is that you need to make frequent changes as frequent as possible. But that in reality, that's not the case. You need to create a set cycle in which you're reviewing your app and going ahead with updates, whether it's metadata updates or creative updates. Now, on the platform, you might be noticing that there are a lot of green dots and the orange line as well. Now, this orange line refers to an A/B test, whereas a green dot refers to an update. Now, why is this important, or what's the tip to be taken from here? Is that firstly, we need to understand what kind of changes or what trend our competitors are doing in terms of making updates to the app, as in what keywords are they primarily focusing on and what updates they want to make. Secondly, I would like to understand what variables are they trying to test out, because now with the introduction of so many creatives, it's important to utilize the feature that we have unique to the Google Play Store, that's the A/B testing, and see the variants that are coming into play, and then noticing what updates they're making, and also the frequency of these updates that they're making. Now, why are these frequency updates really important? Well, the Google Play Store primarily is a system where we are giving or sending signals to the algorithm to understand or help them perceive how we are as compared to our competitors. Now, one thing that the Play Store does is that it focuses on the nearby app. Say, for example, you're an app in fifth or sixth in the ranking or 10th in the ranking. It's always comparing you with the apps plus two or plus three in the ranking and comparing in terms of a lot of metrics, frequency of updates, conversion for keywords, and so on. So it's quite important to know how frequently are the competitors that we want to benchmark our app against as compared to us. To understand that better, there's also like a frequency chart that helps us understand, okay, over the time period that we have selected, which apps are making the largest changes and what are the kind of changes that they're making. Right, so that's primarily what is there in metadata, and that's the primary tip to take up here is always compare your app to your competitors, never overdo it and never underdo it as well, because then you're going to send the wrong signals. Now, why are these important metrics? What are these important metrics? The three primary metrics that you would focus on in terms of understanding the strength of your app is primarily one is the app power, and then secondly, it's the category rank. So, what is the app power, and why is the app power important? The app power is basically a metric given out by AppWeek that helps us understand how strong are competing apps in the category, or also how strong our app is as compared to the other apps in the category. Now, it goes from a broad range of 0 to 100, with 0 being the lowest and 100 being the highest. So the higher the app's power, the better or stronger the app is. Now, this is an important metric because it helps you understand, okay, if my app power is strong, it's easier for an app of a higher app power to rank on much higher volume keywords versus, say, an app that is maybe 10 or 20 in app power. So it's an important metric to gain, and it primarily increases when your category rank increases. That is the rank in the category chosen. For example, Ola is in the maps and navigation category, and whereas other apps might be in different categories. So it takes that into consideration. And then secondly, is the estimated downloads. That is the amount of downloads an app is receiving on a day-to-day basis, and these are unique installs. Now, if I want to compare them side by side, I'm going to compare them with the competing apps and also understand how is it working for them or what's happening on a day-to-day basis. Now you might be noticing here on this graph there's a lot happening. There's green lines, there's a blue dotted line, but I'm going to simplify it further. Now when I do an individual analysis for a particular app, what I try to notice is that how the set events that the app is taking place is contributing to that app's growth or not, right? Now, a lot of apps have the aim of being featured in the store. And say once, for example, once an app gets featured in the store, how is it contributing to the app install or and so on. So when I do my individual analysis is to focus on the contribution each event takes place. And if I open this individually in each tab for a particular competitor, I can see what contribution a set event has taken place and what is it done for the app. Then I also try to focus on understanding on a day-to-day basis what's the ranking evolution. Now, when I put these apps side by side, I'm noticing that one app here in particular does not have a table. That's because probably Yulu is in a different category. Now, one trick a lot of apps do in the space is that sometimes they put themselves in a different category as compared to their competitors. They try to be in a less relevant or a less competitive category, and then try to rank up quickly from there. That's something that they do, and it's a very common practice that is seen, especially in the gaming category. So today, compared to competitors, Ulus decide to stay in the travel and local category versus say maps and navigation, where majority of their competitors are. Now, this helps them particularly in their app, but it comes down to each app's individual branding strategy and their strategy in terms of ASO. So that's a primary focus in terms of category ranking, and the same applies to the principles in store performance, which is more in understanding the average amount of downloads that are there on a day-to-day basis. Now, for me to understand this further, there is a table here. The same principles apply and how it's contributing to it. Now, if we take this for competing apps, there is a number on a day-to-day basis. Right. Apologies if there any technical glitches that are happening. Um, but am I clearly audible now? All right. So that's going to be a focus primarily on analytics. So we can spend a bit more time on the main part. So the keyword section. Why is this important, or how we're going to be spending our time here? Now, the premise of the keyword section, or especially in ASO, is that we need to build something that's quite important to build the foundations of how we're going to go about our ASO tactics, and that is a semantic dictionary. Now, an average dictionary consists about 400 to 500 words that helps us understand, okay, what are the set of keywords that we need to focus on. Now, there are many ways to go about creating a dictionary. A lot of people use a keyword shuffler, Well, for example, in the tool that when we go about our analysis, we firstly utilize the many tabs that we have in terms of in-depth analysis. One way of going about it is sometimes I'm just sitting down and I just randomly put in keywords like ride or bike and so on, and I try to build the combinations of it to add into my list. Then secondly, we have, if I want to take the low hanging fruit and get the keywords which are currently there in any of the app's title, I go to my tab app metadata and try to quickly take in the keywords that are already there. Then, for example, when you the competitors, I add them in as well, one by one. I choose to build that dictionary as rapidly as I can, taking the ones that I already know. Now, where it gets interesting and where we try to break the barrier and have a more diverse set of keywords is try to understand, for example, what are keywords that are driving the most amount of downloads or organic downloads towards a particular app. Firstly, one is through utilizing the tool stop search term feature, for example, where I understand what are my end users or potential end users typing in for each particular app. Now, here, if I find any interesting generic keyword or a certain set of branded keywords, I'm going to go ahead and add that into my list. And the same process with any of the competitors here. Now, a lot of these keywords might be irrelevant, or you might think, okay, there are a lot of spelling mistakes, but these are the keywords that sometimes tend to have a lot of search volume to it. So it's always advisable to add them into your list to do your research. But in terms of implementing it into your metadata, that is something that would not be required at all. So, for example, today I'm interested in Vogo, and Vogo is a renting or a ride return app. And if I want to go through their set of keywords, I'm going to go through it. And I understand that today bike rental, which is a generic keyword, is quite important to them. And I want to understand why so. So I go ahead and I bike rental, scooter rental, and so on. As of now, just utilizing these two tabs, I've already built up my dictionary to about 135 keywords. So it's really important to build as broad a dictionary because the broader the dictionary, the more amount of data points you'll be able to extract. Then we have rank keywords. Now, as much as important the downloadable keywords are, I also want to understand what are the set of keywords I am ranking for and my competitors are ranking for. What is the relevance? Before I go into explaining this further, the numbers that you notice here next to the keyword is not the keywords ranking, but is basically the search volume. And it's on a KPI score, which I'll explain further when we get to the analysis table. But do not mistake this for ranking. That's not what it means. Right. So here we have the ranking for each app, and it's segregated from rank 1 up till rank 100 for us to better understand, okay, what are the set of keywords we've ranked for at least once over the last 90 days, and then go through them individually to see if there are any particular keyword that I would like to add in to my list or my dictionary. And I'm going to go through this individually for each app. So when you're doing this for a broad set of competitors, it takes a bit of time. And an easy way to do is sometimes I filter it out by removing the low volume keywords. So the lowest KPI score is 5 and the maximum is 100. So I tend to remove it and put it in a certain range and then start adding these keywords into my list, because at the end of the day, if you're a higher app or an app that's much higher up in the ranking, you would not want to spend time populating your list with low volume keywords. So that's really important as well. So now with this exercise, I've built a small dictionary of about 207 keywords. And what I'm going to do is now understand them on a KPI level. So there's 6 primary KPIs here. That's super important to understand. Search volume, installs, difficulty, chance, KEI, and rank. Volume is basically the search volume of a keyword. It tells us how popular a particular keyword is. Now in ASO, especially, it's not an absolute number. It's completely denoted by a KPI score. And what we have done at AppTweak is that we have done research on millions of these keywords and we plotted them in a graph and found out that these keywords are completely non-linear, and the median range in which they fall is between the score of 25 to 27. Now, any keyword that's in the volume range of 25 to 27 is considered to be popular. But what's important here to understand that, okay, if you're a new app or you're an app that is starting out in this category or it's new to the store, you would ideally think that, okay, it would make sense to target all these high volume keywords. But ideally, that's not the situation because these are keywords that are super competitive and super popular. Now, if you're starting out and you're in the volume, sorry, in the app power range of 0 to 30 or 0 to 25, you would ideally focus on keywords in the volume range of 10 to 20. And then you would make that gradual step up as soon as you start ranking more and start ranking on more keywords. So that's very important to know, because a lot of app marketers tend to make that mistake and then get disheartened as to why they're not ranking on high volume keywords. It tends to be a longer process, and one of the key concepts is that, okay, if there's a key or an important keyword, like say for example rights, which might have a super high volume, and that's something that might be really important for any of these apps to rank on. But if you're new to this category, you would first focus on the long tail combinations and short tail combinations on a lower volume, and then try to rank your way up into the core keyword itself. So that's an important tip to take into consideration, and understand as well. Then we have all installs. So all installs is primary for you to understand, okay, how many keywords, how many downloads does this keyword generate in a month? Does it generate about 700,000, 800,000? What's like the market share of it? Then what I would focus on is, okay, fine, if this is a high volume, it has that many installs, who are the competing apps and how much are there, what are their estimated downloads per keyword? I would then focus on the installs per keyword feature and then understand, okay, these particular apps get XYZ amount of installs per month from this particular keyword. So the more competitors and the more keywords you have, the more data points you have to understand. Then we have difficulty. Difficulty tells us how difficult it's going to be for any app in particular to rank on this particular keyword. On a scale, all of these metrics move on a scale of 0 to 100, where 0 is the lowest and 100 is the highest. So ideally here, if you're an app that's new to the category, you would try to focus on lower difficulty keywords. You would focus much below 40, so that you have lesser competition, gives you a higher chance to rank on certain combinations of them. But if, for example, you're an app like Ola and you've somehow gone higher up in the category and you're ranking really well, then this is something you don't need to look at in terms of your play, because you will rank for it eventually. Then we have chance. So chance is the probability to tell you, okay, between a score of 0 to 100, what is the chance for your app to rank on this keyword? 0 being the lowest chance and 100 being the highest chance. Now, in the ideal situation, taking all these metrics into consideration, you would try to focus on a keyword which is higher in volume, lower in difficulty, and highest in chance to help your app rank on that particular keyword. By doing so, you can also rely on the last column, that is KEI, that is Keyword Efficiency Index, and this tells us how efficient a particular keyword is going to be for your app in terms of organic visibility. And you would use this column when you're differentiating between two sets of like certain sets of keywords. They're very similar in metrics, but you don't know which is going to be a bit more efficient. You rely on the column that is Keyword Efficiency Index. Now, lastly, apart from the rank and your competitions rank on the same set of keywords, I also sometimes tend to focus, okay, I'm not thinking broad enough, who are my competitors? So then I go on a feature called Live Search, where I can see who are the apps currently on the store ranking, say, for example, for Uber, who are the other apps there? Are there any competing apps that might be interesting for me to add into my competing list to do my research? And I can do so by just clicking plus and adding that app as a particular competitor. Right, so this is one exercise to go through to understand keywords completely on a KPI level. Now, once you understand them and you've made certain changes to your app, now you want to understand, okay, I've made a certain set of changes. I have such a broad dictionary, but I don't know where I'm gaining and losing my visibility. I don't know what's contributing to my app's loss in terms of organic visibility. There's this particular chart here called visibility history, which for our dictionary tells us, okay, where are we gaining and losing? So this is really important, right? So the core foundation here is to make sure that you have a broad enough dictionary, wide enough dictionary, so then you're able to pick out the points individually on terms of a keyword and then measure out where you're gaining and losing. Once you have a broad enough dictionary, I can then understand for my app and my competition, where am I gaining and losing this level of visibility? It starts on a base of 0 and then goes up. Now, if I was an app marketer, I'm doing ASO, I would primarily focus here, because you have such limited space in terms of keywords. I would then come down here and see, okay, where am I gaining and losing? So you will focus on the growth chart, you will focus on the volume chart, and then on the ranking column. And same time for your competition. Now, knowing that, okay, there are a particular set of keywords here, they might not be high volume, but they might be high volume, and you think that certain keywords are not working, you then switch it out for the keywords that you are seeing growth in. So you ride that growth wave and then help your app gain that visibility that's required, and remove the keywords from your metadata for which your keywords are, for which you're not getting your visibility. So this is one way to track that, and as well as track your competition as to where they are growing as well, so you can understand that they are optimizing accordingly. So you have all the data you require at the fingertips to make that necessary decision. I think one tool that I find super important in terms of my day-to-day ASO is a feature called Keyword Master. Now, sometimes what happens is that I do not get inspired. I'm not able to create a dictionary, and I really want to understand what is the set of keywords a particular app is ranking for, what is the search volume the majority installs are coming from, and from what ranks. So then I open the keyword performance report and I tend to understand the breakdown. Now, for an app like Ola, right, majority of the installs are coming from their own brand. But my understanding here is to understand where are these 7%, that's these generic installs coming from. So I can come down here to the chart and I have a breakdown of all the installs through which they are getting installs, the keywords through which they're getting installed, and I'm gonna filter it out. I have no interest in the branded keywords, but I'm interested in building my dictionary on the generic keywords. I would filter it out by generic and then understand what are these keywords, what are these spelling mistakes, are there other brands or the brand keywords that have not been targeted as a branded keyword. And I would do this exercise the same way with each of the competition to build that broad enough dictionary. So that's really important to know. So that it still comes on a key foundation that you really need to build a broad enough dictionary. So that's the keyword section here. Then we have our add intelligence section. Now, this section is basically to help me understand or empower me to know, okay, what keywords is Google bidding on in terms of these respective apps. So you set a particular budget for these apps, and then they go ahead and Google goes on their behalf and bids on these keywords. Now, from an ASO's perspective, this is important because a lot of app marketers get confused as to why Google might be bidding on very random keywords for them. Now, this comes back to your ASO strategy, where what keywords you are ranking on and getting a lot of visibility on is basically sending the signal to Google to say, hey, these are the keywords that are relevant to these apps. So we're going to focus this app's bid on maximizing the visibility on XYZ set of keywords and sets the necessary bid. So here, what happens is, unlike Apple, you don't get to choose the keywords, but Google is doing it on your behalf. So utilizing this aspect, you can understand where the money is going in terms of what keywords are being bid. And then secondly, understanding, for example, in the paid keywords, am I even winning these bids? If I am winning these bids, what is my share of voice, and who are the other apps that are winning these respective bids? For example, over the last 90 days, I can see that Uber has won bids on 546 keywords and they have a respective share of voice. I don't know if Yulu has done any form, nothing's done for Yulu. Wogo has basically won over 3 keywords, but one keyword that they won a bid on is rush bike, but their share of voice is on a negligible scale. That's really important to understand. And when I'm doing my ASO, this might not affect my keywords, but this impacts my overall apps downloads, and that would be social media advertising. So a lot of apps today utilize social media such as Facebook and Instagram to direct down installs into the for the app by directing the end users to the store. On currently, we have so many active ads being run, especially by Ola and by Rapido. Now, if I want to understand what these ads are and what they're doing with it, it's primarily here for me to see the ads that they're running and see what are they trying to advertise and redirect you to install that particular ad. I can see the same for any of the competitors as well and have an understanding of what's happening in terms of their active ads. Now, I'm going to focus more on the reviews and rating section because this is a section that a lot of app marketers neglect in terms of the day-to-day ASO and don't really understand the impact that reviews and ratings have on the particular app. Now in ASO, your reviews and rating is super important, especially making sure that you have a good average rating because let's be honest, at the end of the day, when we go to the app store, we always tend to download an app which has a higher app rating than a lower rating. So getting these reviews are really important. Now, in terms of ASO, in terms of a keyword level, what's the tip and trick here? So what Google does is that their algorithm focuses on the keywords that are repeating the most in your reviews. Now, if these keywords are part of your dictionary as part of the keywords you are ranking for, it's really, really important to make sure that you have positive reviews with these keywords in it. Now, to understand it further, we have a feature here called sentiment analysis that's going to load up the keywords or the keywords that are repeating the most in your review. And one of the metrics that Google looks at is the velocity at which responses are given to a review. It looks at, okay, how fast or how active you are in giving responses to your reviews, and then looks at the keywords that are being repeated the most. Now, for example, Ola has a lot of negative reviews with the keywords, their brand name, driver, service, and so on. Now, if they do not take an active stance in responding to these reviews, it's going to start negatively affecting the visibility on these keywords and overall affecting the visibility on the store. This is something a lot of apps and a lot of app marketers take very, very lightly. But if this is when it's done right, it can affect your visibility in a very, very large manner, and it's super important to look at. But it's also important to understand on a regular basis what is the sentiment of the reviews of a particular app and a particular customer. Like, for example, if we take Rapido, it's quite contrasting as compared to Ola. They have a lot of positive reviews against their brand name, a lot more positive reviews than Ola against the keyword, right? So it's going to positively affect their visibility. So it's really important to take a note of this and see what end users are talking about each particular app to give you an idea of which direction they are heading. And lastly, I think this is a section that's a bit of a black box because there's not much knowledge in terms of this section. There's not much control here. And it's the explore section. It's about browse traffic and it's about featuring. Now there's a comment saying that, okay, to get featured in the particular app store, that you need to do XYZ, but it all comes down to how your app's performing at a certain keyword level, how it's performing across the store across a particular time, and also comes down to the editorial team who are making the featurings daily. Now, a common question that we get is that, okay, how can we get featured? One of the ways you can get featured is by building a relationship with Google, and try understanding on a regular basis what are the kind of keywords they are focusing on. Try to improve your velocity or your rankings on the certain set of keywords to get picked out to be built as part of this particular stories that they're looking at. Now, across the competitors here, we see that Uber has been featured the most in terms of featuring, followed by Rapido and then Ola. And you can understand over a period of time what is the unique featuring and how much average featuring they're receiving per week, but also to understand the kind of stories they're being featured on. So Rapido, Uber, Ola consistently being featured on maps and GPS, Get a Ride, and so on. Now, while this has a lot of positive impact on your app, it is very hard to consistently maintain. You can try your best, but there's nothing here in terms of absolute control. And the same applies to similar apps as well. Now, the most common question that we get here is that, okay, how do I control what Google thinks of my app and who my necessary competitors are? But there's a lot of hypotheses here that has been thrown in the ASO community. One of the hypotheses is that it focuses on the keywords that you have in common with these competitors. But then again, Google also looks at, okay, if I download Ola today, am I also downloading Rapido? So it's relevant for other users as well. So there's a lot of hypothesis here, but there's nothing in terms of absolute control. So similar apps is basically a browse traffic who are the similar apps or recommended apps based on your listing, and who are driving traffic towards you and who are you giving traffic towards on a day-to-day basis. For an app like Ola, today on a day-to-day basis, they're giving about 55,000 views to apps like Rapido, redirecting them to the Ola driver, or Uber, and so on. Whereas in terms of receivables, it generally tends to be a mixed number, but it tends to be higher. So yeah, it's a much lower number. So Rapido is the app that's giving them the most receivables with about 21,000 views, but they receive much more from Ola on a day-to-day basis. All right, so this is the entire tool, and we've covered each and every part in terms of KPIs, in terms of keywords, in terms of ad intelligence. My colleagues are in the chat, and do you have any particular question that you'd like to address today? All right, so let me take a question from Ujasvi. Your views on getting paid reviews. Right, so in terms of paid reviews, what happens is that you might get the reviews today, but what happens is that the store looks at it in a manner and then tends to delete these reviews. So I don't think in terms of ROI is the best decision to go. It's always great to redirect end users towards your app. And a lot of a tactic used by a lot of app marketers today is that they kind of have a pop-up in the app that asks the users to give a review, and if it's maybe a 1 star or 2 star review, they redirect them to a website um, to give the review. But if it's a positive review, they redirect them to the store. So I would always recommend both the organic route. Paid reviews works in the short term, but in the long term, those reviews will get deleted. On how many keywords to use. Currently, with the new mandate that's coming, you can utilize 30 keywords for your app name. It's recently changed, so that's why it's really important to build a broad dictionary and then come down and segregate what you require. Where your real playing field comes in terms of your long description, where you're going to repeat the core set of keywords that you want in a manner that is legitimate for the store without stuffing it. So I would say that you can utilize 30 for your app name, or the same for your subtitle. So use unique keywords for your app name and your subtitle. Don't repeat it, but repeat the keywords that you require in your long description. Hi, Vikram. To answer your question regarding the conversion rate, it varies from each country, each category. I would request you to visit the AppTweak website. I don't know the numbers over the top of my head, but we have a conversion rate benchmark there that's free to use, and you can have an idea of what's the average numbers based on the amount of data that we have across the categories and countries. Hey guys, do you have any other question? I don't know. That's a very very relevant question. It's a question we get very often. But no, as of today, App Week is hyper focused on App Store optimization only on a keyword level. And in-app events is something that will be a future part of the company. But keep a lookout. Maybe next year it might be launched, or maybe a couple of years after. But as of today and the immediate future, it's not part of the tool. How do we define KEI? So KEI stands for Keyword Efficiency Index. So the efficiency index is basically it helps you understand, okay, how efficient a particular keyword is going to be in terms of organic visibility. It's not based on artificial intelligence, but it takes into consideration your app power, the difficulty of the keyword, the volume of the keyword, the chance, and based on those metrics. Yes, it's an in-house analysis. Yeah, I think in the chat, hey Nikhil, in the chat has mentioned that there would be a recording for it. But by any chance you're not able to get a recording of it, we can always schedule a one-on-one call and go through the tool entirely again, where you can ask me the questions that you want, and we can address it. Perfect. So guys, if you have any other questions that you would like to address right now? What competitor, Hanikel? So could you be a bit more particular in terms of keywords? What keywords are competitors using, or in terms of uh, other metrics? Right. So in terms of keywords, under the keyword section, there are a lot of features. For example, I mean, what they're using in terms of keywords are quite straightforward. So the keywords that they're using is primarily in their app name. It's the exact same keywords in the subtitle, and then the keywords that they're using in the long description, the ones that are repeated the most, are the keywords that are getting indexed by the Google algorithm. So it's completely available, it's straightforward to use. So you know by just looking at the app and reading the description, that's the keywords they're using. Now, in terms of their marketing strategy, I can only talk about it from an ASO point of view. Is that you focus on two aspects here. One is which keywords uh, are repeated the most. So the average percentage is 3 to 4%, right? So you only repeat the keywords you want to get the rank for the most or index